Coach Sully, Reps and Sweat Martial Arts and Fitness. This is Mat Chat. So today's topic, I'm going to be talking about the benefits in teaching and how teaching contributes to your game being the teacher. So last week, I started a program with my kids in my kids' classes. It's called the Junior Sensei Program, where they are basically inviting their friends to come and train. And yes, I do want more kids to come and participate in my program. But what I really want to start seeing happen is I want to see my kids, when they're mingling with their friends, when they're on the playground, when they're at school, I want to see them getting into the habit of showing their friends what they learned. And I know that by doing that, that's going to improve their technique. That's going to improve their performance. Teaching, when I first got into teaching, I looked at it like something that was going to take away from my own progress. I'm like, damn, I'm getting good. Now I gotta go and show this move to somebody who doesn't know it. And I felt like it was going to keep me stagnant initially. And as I started to get into teaching more, I realized that actually the complete opposite was true. Teaching really takes your game to the next level. We look at, especially in the martial arts space, and especially teaching beginners and people who don't necessarily know what they're doing, we think that takes away from our progress because we have to step aside and put time aside and back up to help another person come up. But the complete opposite is true. When you teach, you actually get an opportunity to revisit things. And sometimes you might be good at something and you don't necessarily know why you're good at it. You might be good at something just because you're strong. You might be good at something just because you're fast. And you're relying on things outside of technique to guarantee your success. But when you're teaching, you get to uncover all of those things. You get to solve problems in your game without having to actually go through the motions of trial and error. You get to learn through your students' experiences. So I put together a list of 5 benefits that I've gotten from teaching over the years. So number 1, I get to practice more. And especially because I know when I first started teaching, they start you're teaching an intro course. You're basically teaching people who don't know their right foot from their left foot, who don't know how to move forward, don't know how to move backwards. So I looked at that as a burden, to be honest with you. But what I found is that it actually contributed to sharpening my understanding and my performance of the basic techniques. And I'm talking about even at the novice level when you're teaching, it still contributes to your personal technique. It allows me to practice more. So the technique, that basic technique that Otherwise, you just would have learned it. It's in your game. Now I get to revisit that basic technique over and over and over again. And then I realize that practice, that constant practice, contributes to my performance of the technique at the level that I'm at. The next thing, it allows you to better explain the technique. They say that you don't know something until you can explain it, specifically until you can explain it to a fifth grader. So the better you are at being able to articulate what it is that you're trying to teach, the better you get at the thing that you're teaching, the better your understanding is of the thing that you're teaching. If you can explain it, that means you understand it. And I would say that you do not fully understand something until you're able to explain it. The next thing is you get to catch your own mistakes. Again, like I said, sometimes in our own game, we have things that we can just do naturally because maybe we're stronger, maybe we're faster. And being exposed to a student's problem will help you catch those mistakes that might be in your game that you weren't aware of. Sometimes you don't notice the mistakes that you're making until you see those mistakes in someone else. And you might have been getting by because of factors outside of technique, and all it would have taken is somebody that might be faster than you to expose that technique. But now you get to draw from your student's experience and your students' mistakes to open you up and open your eyes up to the mistakes that might exist in your own game. So the next thing it does is this one's important. It forces you to focus on fundamentals. You hear this all across the board, and in anything physical, any sports, any martial arts. We're always talking about the basics. We're always talking about the fundamentals. What better way is there to be constantly revisiting the fundamentals and the basics than teaching? I believe that my game would be completely different had I not teach. Like right now, just in the way that I kickbox, in the way that I wrestle, the way that I grapple, is solely dependent on fundamentals, on basics. And I believe that the reason for that is that I've been teaching for so long. If you can make the basics work, if you can make the fundamentals work, everything else is going to fall into place. And a lot of times, when we're pursuing and training just for our own personal purposes, we skip over a lot of the fundamentals. There are a lot of people on the mats that are performing at a high level that have some areas in their games where they're lacking fundamentals. But when you're put in an environment where you're constantly revisiting the fundamentals, those fundamentals get ingrained into your own personal game. And then lastly, what it does is it helps me build confidence. The technique, when I see a technique and I know that this technique has worked for this person, this body type, this strength level, this athleticism, now when I'm performing that technique, I'm performing it confidently because I know that it works. I've seen it work not only in my own game, I know that this is working. I know that it's going to work, not only in my game, but in everyone else's game. And that's going to strengthen my confidence in my ability to perform that particular technique. So teaching is, and this is why, and particularly Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, when you're being considered for black belt promotion, a big factor in whether you're awarded your black belt or not is how well do you teach. That's actually the element that makes your jiu-jitsu journey to that black belt level complete. A lot of times the brown belt or even the purple belt can perform better than the black belt. You know, by the time we get our black belts, we're half crippled, back broken, knees shot. So as we advance, it's not, the promotion of black belt isn't given based on your performance, it's given based on your ability to teach the techniques. So teaching is very, very important. And the sooner you can start teaching, you should start teaching immediately. And this is why I started this program with my kids, is that I know that when they're out and about, if they're showing their jab to a friend, when they come back on the mat, that jab, their performance is going to tenfold. And getting the kids to start teaching early is going to fast track their learning process. So teach, teach, and teach. You should be, especially when we're talking about martial arts, you should be pulling your friends to the side and say, hey, let me show you this technique. And I tell people a lot of times when I'm having my self-defense seminars, my women's self-defense seminars, I show them a basic technique, because sometimes, a lot of times with these seminars, you don't see these people again. And I tell them, hey, some of you guys don't have the time to come back here on a regular basis. Walk out of these doors today and take this technique and show it to your friend, show it to your husband. That will open up the door for them to start practicing on their own. Otherwise, it goes in one ear and comes out the other. So teaching is, I would say, the most important part of learning. That's when learning is complete. You have to think, we're not a dam. We're a river. We're a conduit. We're a pipeline. And as information comes in, we have to also funnel it out. We have to also let it flow through us. Information comes in, information goes out. Information comes in, information goes out. When you let that information out and when you give it away, you can allow more to come in. It's more space for more to come in. So keep that in mind, folks. If you're really, really, really interested in contributing to your performance at the highest level, make sure you're teaching somebody. All right, guys, gotta run. Coach Sully, Reps and Sweat Martial Arts and Fitness. This was Matt Chat.